everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, I don't have the chat synced. Let me fix that real quick. Okay, let's get that all synchronized. Hopefully you all can hear me. Let's make sure of that. Okay. It looks like people can hear me. Good. Yay. Excellent. Good times, good news. Alrighty. Oh, and then we gotta turn on the Bandita camera because she is currently, I don't know what's up with her today. She was originally laying directly behind my chair and now, like on one of the wheels, and now she's laying 2 centimeters away from the dog camera. So, I mean, I wasn't kidding. She's literally on top of it. So you guys are getting like full HD Bandita action right now. Look at this. Yeah, you're just a little fuzzball. You're just a little fuzzball on screen. Oh my goodness. Okay. So before we get too far into it, couple of things. I'm in the middle of changing some stuff, and of course YouTube has changed things right after I have changed them for myself. So pay attention. First of all, still Nathan Plays Only live stream, which you can see right up there, a little reminder. Please read the rules as well. We have a nice little Q&A down there for everyone who is new to go over. It's very, very simple. Basically, respect me, respect the mods, respect other people in chat, don't spam the chat. We do have a list of frequently asked questions, so if you want answers to commonly asked questions related to especially kink and BDSM about things like, where can I buy a flogger? What books do you recommend? That's going to be down below for some additional resources that'll answer more in full than I can here right now. And then on top of that, I don't give medical advice, things like that, legal advice, because I'm not a doctor, a lawyer, a psychiatrist, any of that. So if you're looking for advice on like, I did a scene and my hip still hurts, did I break something? I'm going to be like, I don't know. Or my partner violated a contract we signed. Can I sue them? I'm gonna be like, probably not, but talk to a doctor or talk to a lawyer, not a doctor. Doctors also can't help you with legal questions. Don't go to, unless they're someone MD and also have a JD. That would be weird. That's somebody who absolutely didn't know what they wanted to do in life, but had a lot of free time and a lot of money. So, you know what? There's probably doctors who are also lawyers. How many doctors are part of the bar association? Like, at least a couple, right? So maybe, but an edge case on that one. So normally the way that we do things here is this is an interactive Q&A. So you guys come in and you ask questions and I answer them. And we have a fun time in the chat going over answers. And because I do not know everything about everything, people also contribute their thoughts. We also have the ability to use super chats, as Sean has just demonstrated to us very, very nicely. Thank you so much, Sean. And what that does is it allows you to get your question highlighted and answered right away if you would like to use one. If you become a YouTube member, either because you receive a gifted sub or because you buy one for yourself for the low, low price of a single Taco Bell taco, 99 cents, you get access to our beautiful, wonderful emote collection that you can use in the chat to express your thoughts and feelings, and it's a lovely time. So that's the usual spiel. However, as I said, things have been changing. Things are different. So normally what we do is people just put their questions the old-fashioned manual way in the chat, and then I try my best to find them. However, because of how many people are in these live streams normally and how many questions we get and the fact that I ramble about answers for a long time and we kind of follow related threads for a while, I end up not being able to see a lot of them because they just kind of get lost in the shuffle. And YouTube has, at the same time, I have finally built a bot thingy that works for myself. You have 2 options. Actually, you technically have 3. If you would like to get your question answered, you can still try to put it just in the chat the regular way, especially while we're transitioning to doing a new system. And I will try my best to be able to get to it. I can't promise I'll be able to see it because of aforementioned reasons of them just getting kind of lost in the shuffle of a lot of chat messages going by, and because I do answer in order they come in. So the other options that you have that are new as of today is you can go in the chat, and right now you can go and you can put exclamation point lowercase q and then say whatever your question is. And then you put that in the chat. And then after a couple seconds, if you did it correctly, my bot will pop up and it'll confirm that your question has been added to the queue. And then what that does is it puts everything in a little document for me in a little notepad. And then I get to see if you have a question or not. And then that's how that works. You can also, because YouTube is weird, you can do it that way. And the advantage of doing it with the exclamation point queue is it'll keep your question viewable for everyone in the live stream to see. So that way, if you want to also get answers from other people in the community and not just me, other people can see it more easily. And then they might also be able to respond to it before I get to it. But we also have a Q&A feature. And then if I go to the Q&A, you can actually toggle at the top. You can go between live chat, questions, and then fan funding. And if you go to questions, that'll highlight questions in like a separate area and like preserve all of them. So we're going to just test it out. You guys can let me know which thing you like better. If you like the bot method, if you like the built-in with YouTube method with the separate question area in the chat, and maybe actually I can even put it so that way I can even show on stream. It seems like it's just showing the questions panel, isn't actually showing the top chat. But those are some things that you can do if you would like to use either one of those features. I know we have a couple different things going on and it's confusing, but we will try our best to keep things as understandable as possible. Also, the dog has moved, so I'm going to move the camera and have her hopefully be on screen somewhere. Ah, yes. She's gone to spawn point number 2. Floofing out. Little toe bean action. All right. I'm now imagining a person with an MD, JD, PhD who someone either passed the bar exam or their med boards. Yeah, they just kept trying. They were like, maybe I'm not meant to be a doctor. You know what? Maybe I'll try being a lawyer. Oop. That also didn't work. Maybe I'll just get a PhD, and then they do that for like 7 years, and then that works. That's how they finally get it. It's how they get the doctor at the end of their name. Although people that have JDs don't get doctor as part of their name. I think they get something. They get like Esquire or something at the end, technically. Is this a new YouTube feature? Yes. So the Q thing is mine. I didn't like make it originally, but it's something that people on Twitch use because Twitch also needs to have a feature like this, and they don't. Because some streamers only answer questions if they use a super chat or donate or something, and I feel like that's silly, and I don't like doing that, and I feel like that actually sort of invites people to abuse that system and then feel entitled to a certain response, and I don't like that. So in order to keep it free, we have a bot that collates chat questions for us, and then we use that instead. And the question feature, I got it highlighted to me when I made the stream earlier today, and so I'm assuming it's new. I don't recall seeing it before. But if you're in the chat, at the very top, there's like a white bar, and it says, put your questions here and I'll answer them live. And then that gives you an option to submit a question. But then it doesn't seem like, if you want to see other people's questions, you have to go to the view questions live. You have to toggle it and then see that part of the chat. So, yeah. We do, in fact, have the full blog in. And don't worry, Morabella is still here to assist us in answering questions. She was just supervising other parts of the live stream for the time being. But she is still here. Not to worry. The People's Princess is still here. Voted #1 most popular princess in Princess Weekly magazine. Yes. Okay. Alrighty, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get into answering some questions. Oh, I need to put on Twitter that we're live. Alright, and then I'll just make sure if there's any questions that were in the chat before I talked about using the Q&A features and all of that stuff. Wow, super excited to learn more from you, Evie. Yeah, definitely, Misty. Feel free to ask questions. This is the perfect time to do it if you want to learn more about a specific topic. I'm so ready. I need to clock out from work in half an hour, and then I'll make some ramen to enjoy tonight's Evie live stream. Ooh, that sounds like a great way to wrap up the day. A little ramen, a little live stream. Absolutely. Not going to be able to watch much. Going out with friends at 7. Have fun, Woofer. Sounds like a good time. I'm surprised I have yet to see any people or stalls sell any kink gear. for Labubu's. Maybe I'll be lucky if there's a booth at Folsom. So actually, if Emma Alamo is going to be at Folsom, I feel like I remember seeing on their Instagram, like when Labubu's first got popular, I remember seeing some photos from them that were like little Labubu harnesses. So if they're going to be there, they might have some. They might. And actually, even if you actually, Little Fox Toy Box, if they're there, they have like a stuffy stall. And if they're going to be at Folsom, they have a stuffy maker. And I'm pretty sure the clothing for their stuffies you can make with them, I think those might fit a Labubu. But I think they might have harnesses and like little floggers and stuff too that you might be able to put on a Labubu. But I don't know how a Labubu compares size-wise with like a regular stuffed animal. So don't take my word for it. But with how popular Labubus are, there's definitely, and how popular customized Labubus are. Like I follow somebody on Instagram who does tooth gems. And that girl is getting stopped every which way. People ask her to put tooth gems on their Labubus. So people put clothing, tooth gems, they paint their Labubus. Why not kinky bondage Labubus? It just makes sense. I personally would love a kinky Labubu. I don't know what I would put it on. And I'd probably remove the tag. I would make it so it's not worth anything anymore. But it's my personal Labubu. I wouldn't collect them. I just want like the one, you know, to put in a bag. But, you know, instead I have nothing. I don't have any bag charms. I have like a little, like pusheen I have for my car window, but that's about it. All right, putting on Twitter that we're live streaming now. Join us and ask your questions. I should put something for like Instagram stories, like automatically links to my YouTube live stream when we're live. I think there's probably something that does that, but I've never tried it before. All right, there we go. You've all been warned. Welcome, Lexi. Lexi is officially a member for 10 months. Ooh la la. Vampire King Labubu. Exactly. Vampire King Labubu. Yeah, I would be so down for that. So down. I mean, they basically already have like really sharp teeth and fangs, so it's an easy connection. Sean, I did see your new posts on FetLife. Seemed like you had, I'm not going to share any details, but it did seem like you had a fun time. So hope that went well for you. I was ready to fall asleep to the 1963 oil salad scandal, but I couldn't sleep, and then the live stream shows up. Now we'll never know who did it. Wait. What is the 1963 oil salad scandal? I'm assuming that is there was some kind of contamination in oil for salads that went completely sideways. Is like, that was also kind of the era, wasn't there like people got poisoned with Tylenol and never figured out who did it? That was a crazy era. We think now is bad. Damn, in like the 60s and 70s or 80s or whatever, people were having Tylenol and they just croaking over dead, and no one knew why, because someone had figured out how to put poison in Tylenol pill bottles, and no one knew who did it and never figured it out. And that's wild to me. I regret this knowledge. I learned about Labubus at the shore when my niece wanted one. I think Labubus are cute. I mean, I think it's like anything else that's a collectible. People take it way too far. It's like there's somebody out there who's just like, I just have like one Funko Pop that I like. I want the Funko Pop for, I don't know, what's a Funko Pop that makes sense? Chewbacca. And then they just want that one, and that's it. And there's people who have every single Star Wars Funko Pop that has ever been made, ever. And it's ridiculous. Like, actually, I remember the last time I went to, was it Emerald City Comic Con, or was it, I think it was PAX West. The last time I went there, which was like pre-pandemic, it was a while ago, there was a huge Funko Pop stall in the vendor area, and like that, it had a huge line. Like, people were like excited and waiting for hours to get the chance to shop at the Funko Pop store at PAX West. And I'm like, there's way more fun things happening at PAX West than buying a Funko Pop, but apparently people don't agree. So like anything consumerist, it can exist in degrees, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes people blow their life savings on Labubus because we learned nothing from Beanie Babies, apparently. And then as a reminder, if hopefully it'll. Okay, good. It worked. I don't know why the bot is now putting out a string of numbers and not the chat user's name. That's very weird. That was not happening when I was testing it earlier. What is going on? We're gonna, yeah. It just says user. I guess maybe now YouTube is logging names as like usernames. Now it's as like a hash. That's really weird. Okay, so apparently it'll maybe I actually should just like delete that part so that way it doesn't but now I can't see who's asked questions because now it's collecting questions and it's not actually telling me. All right, I'm just gonna make it so then it doesn't, because that just looks annoying. It's gonna make it so then hopefully it won't show that hash on the stream chat anymore, because that doesn't look very pretty. Yeah, I know. That's odd. That probably, they updated the live stream feature. It probably changed because of that, and I don't know why. I swear a dude on Reddit claimed that their dad was the Tylenol murderer, or maybe I'm using that up with or mixing that up with the person claiming Mr. Cruel was their dad. I mean, there's always somebody, right, who's claiming every famous person, and especially every infamous person, is their dad. So, you know, it's there's probably maybe even multiple posts of something like that. Everyone who asks a question gets a fun, really long, nonsensical nickname. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, exactly. The bot is giving you a nice little cool nickname. That's what's happening there. 100% for sure. Yes. Okay, so questions. I'm going to go for the YouTube one first, and we'll start there. And Kristen asks, does anybody happen to know of any LGBT/trans poets who've written kink poems? That is really interesting. I don't know. I don't read a lot of poetry. I read some poetry, but I'm not out here scavenging for, you know, obscure poets or anything. I read the big names basically. So I don't know of any, but if anyone does happen to know of any trans poets or LGBT plus poets who have written about kink, feel free to share them in the chat. And then we have another question. In a live stream last year, you came up with an ingenious put Legos on a stool for corner time and it worked wonders. Now he's almost gotten accustomed to that. Any other post-spanking torments? I mean, I feel like you can upgrade from Legos. It's the easiest thing. Have you considered spikes or potentially cleat bottoms? Would that do it for you? Because sort of on the scale of like that type of pain, but more intense, is like Legos, cleats, spikes, progressively smaller, thinner, taller spikes, and then eventually you just get to basically needles. So I think probably some sharp metal spikes would probably be the next step up, like the kind that you would get for I actually don't know exactly where you would get them from. I don't know, you could probably get them from like Alibaba and like Amazon and stuff for DIY. People use them probably to make like DIY like spiked chokers and collars and things like that. So that would be my direction if you wanted to do something similar and keep using the stool. But it depends on, do you want the punishment to be painful? Or do you want it to be uncomfortable? Do you want it to be more of an emotional sadomasochism thing? Because you want it just to be painful, then the spike thing still holds. But if you want it to potentially just be uncomfortable, there's like a whole world of uncomfortable stuff that we could potentially be playing with there. I always think that like making somebody wear something uncomfortable is a fun tried and true classic. Like it's very like Catholic, like priest level stuff. If you're wearing like assuming they don't like the sensation, at least making them wear something really uncomfortable, like you know, I don't know, making them a stuff like coconut rope down their shorts or something, or like wearing like some other, I think like you can even probably still buy this on certain websites for like Catholic penitents, but you can get a shirt that's intentionally made to be worn under your clothing for that very purpose of offering penance, and that could be fun to try that out. But if it's something also that you want to have be self-directed, like putting Legos on a stool for corner time, is you can also escalate that situation. Like maybe they also at the same time they're doing it, maybe instead they have to do like just doing wall sits for a really long amount of time, or having to sit. This is what I would do. All right. This is my official idea for what I would do for a punishment. That's like, if you like physical fitness stuff or like have sports related trauma, maybe don't play with this. But otherwise, it could be a fun idea, is wall sit plus having to hold ice cubes with your hands. So you're balancing, you're doing something that's typically pretty difficult for your quads, and they're also holding ice cubes, which gets comfortable very quickly. And it's a predicament thing, it's like a mental bondage thing, and it's definitely physical torture. And over time, it also has the benefit of making your quad muscles stronger. So you're not only getting punished, you're also getting some level of physical improvement and a fitness activity out of the experience. So yeah, that little burlap pants. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, burlap. I don't think the material is burlap. I think normally they make it out of like sisal. But you could also do, I feel like palm fronds, or we talked about pineapple leaves. Upcycle pineapple leaves, although that's harder. Those eventually will wilt and go away, so they won't last for very long. But that's another idea from previous streams you could take. Something itchy rough could also work, like, hey, are there rough fibers? Yeah, that was the train of thought that I had, was like rough material, just like in general. Yeah, that was it. Vsauce did metal Lego bricks. Oh, I guess if you like 3D printing, or what would that be exactly? Probably wouldn't be. Oh, you could 3D print some stuff, couldn't you? Oh, somebody's 3D printed some spiky things. Yeah. So if you have a 3D printer, access to one, you could just print out, just take the dimensions of your stool and then find a way to 3D print something that's really spiky and make like kind of like a silicone cover or like a resin cover for it. Scraps of hair from a shave, thinking of my partner when he forgets to clean the sink. Oh my God, that's such a good one. I love that, because it's like, you're being inconsiderate, you're not cleaning up after yourself. So instead, I've actually, when I've been cleaning the sink, what I've been doing is I've been collecting all of your hair into a snack bag. And now I'm gonna like make you eat it, or I'm gonna make you eat it. I'm like, how would you make it into a reusable thing that would be uncomfortable? I feel like just like making somebody have like a little pinch, just like an 1/8 of a teaspoon of their own hair. Like, make them stick their tongue out. All right, get one of those like bamboo clamps, okay? Like the like bamboo skewer clamps where it's got the rubber bands at the end that holds your tongue out, like that. And then just like put the hair on their tongue, and then just like make them hold it for a while, and then after like a minute, have them swallow and eat the hair. See, there you go. We have a 3D printer. Oh, then the possibilities are truly limitless. Yeah. I do enjoy making him do squats. You can make him do wall sits while holding ice cubes, or holding something that you 3D print. You could do like a little 3D printed, I don't know how easy it would be. I don't know how easy spherical objects are with 3D printing. But you could definitely do like maybe like spiky balls, like basically just like spiky tennis ball maybe sized, or like ping pong ball sized spiky objects, and have him hold those. I don't think you can freeze resin, but if, I don't know, I guess you could make a mold using the 3D printer and then freeze ice cubes that start out being spiky, but that probably wouldn't work, because then they would just melt and they wouldn't be spiky for very long. What if you froze something into the ice cubes that was unpleasant when it melted? But what would be unpleasant to hold that would also go into an ice cube? You could also do, or maybe you have them hold like a wax play candle in one hand and an ice cube in the other, and then like the difference in feedback from like the hot melting wax and the ice cube would probably like short circuit your brain as well. Listen, I don't claim not to be a sadist. I claim not to be a masochist. I am a sadist. I have said so many a time. However, I am not a dominant, and I am not a masochist. So the masochist thing is a little wibby wobbly. You know, sometimes you have conversations with people and you're like, you know, I am talking about you, like, doing terrible things to my body, and that does sound exciting and fun. And so maybe I am a masochist. Maybe I really am one after all. But yes, I make no bones about me being a sadist. That is definitely a thing. I can't describe my visceral disgust to the idea of eating hair. Well, that's what makes it a good punishment then. That is evil and great. I would probably cover it with something. Yeah. I can suppress my gag reflex for some things. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I came out here. Yeah, exactly. There's always... Sometimes you get really good at glugging larger objects, and still the tiny little stuff will get you. Will get you for sure. Frozen bananas is so stinky and slimy and gross. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. Freeze some banana slices into some ice cubes. Yeah. The spiky jacks game. Oh, yeah. Like the little old, like, Little House on the Prairie, like, the pickup sticks game or whatever, where they have like the bouncy rubber ball on the jacks and stuff. Yeah. The spiky jacks game, freeze a minute. Yeah, there you go. What has my brain done for me lately? It's always a good question to ask. All right, so those are some good. I think we got a really good train of post-spanking. Oh yeah, specifically post-spanking torments. Oh, well, if you want to do something on wherever they've been spanked, that's a whole other world of things you could be doing on there. If you haven't broken skin, different risk profile if you have broken skin. But if it's just like a red butt and it's really sore and tender, alcohol spray. You could probably also do something that's like a topical irritant, like maybe some like capsaicin cream, icy hot tiger balm. Even just like hot sauce probably would work. Getting into more like chemical play, I think, could be a potential direction. And then even potentially having alternating sensations on like each butt cheek. So then you're also not even getting the satisfaction of it being even, which also I think disturbs some people. Thank you. Your question has been added to the queue. Okay, it's working as intended. Good. All right. So I'm going to answer. We do have, you can use either, I think like people are using the exclamation point Q feature more so than the YouTube question feature. So I'm going to wrap up this last one we currently have in the YouTube queue, and then we're going to jump over to the queue that is being collated for me on the chatbot side of things. So there you go. He sometimes does get broken skin. We are trying to avoid that. We use capsaicin. Okay. Yeah, broken skin just happens sometimes. So yeah, I probably wouldn't. Using topical things that like is an ointment or something over an open wound is like generally speaking outside of a risk profile that I would feel comfortable advising. But you definitely can make it feel uncomfortable. Afterwards using the other methods that we've talked about for sure. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think I could definitely talk more about punishments. He does hate the one cheek spanking. Yeah. So then you gotta do opposite things on opposite sides. I think that's the indication I'm hearing from that for sure. So yeah, I'm happy. And if you guys want to have more punishment ideas, definitely happy to give some more punishment ideas. Feel free to ask more questions about that. But, why don't you go over $2, but I can gift, etc. Oh, that's weird. Oh, I don't know what's happening there. I didn't change anything. So I'm not sure what's going on. Huh, odd. Well, thanks for letting me know. I can check it out after the stream is done because I'm not seeing anything currently that's about that on my end at least. So I'll have to do some poking about that one. Naomi asks, any alternative ideas to do when sick? Was going to do some kinky first time with hypnosis this week and some normal rope fun. Instead, I got a virus that makes me sore and grumpy. Ooh, Naomi, I'm so sorry. I mean, my inclination with that is I think people like just think about kink from the physical taxing part of it and worrying about wearing out your body when you're sick, which is a thing to consider. Don't do a big suspension scene when you have the flu is a good rule of thumb to follow, right? Don't do things that are, potentially gonna like make you more feverish or just increase the length of time that you're sick because your body is now spending energy doing the scene and coping with that more so than dealing with the illness and then potentially making the illness last longer. But kink is also mentally taxing, and your body can also be worn out by things that are that require a high level of like mental output. And this is like part of the reason why trying to like force yourself to go to school when you're sick is not necessarily the best idea, because you're going to wear your brain out trying to keep up with both the illness and then also using energy for your brain to process the learning that you're trying to do. Same thing with emotional sadomasochism or hypnotism or other mentally intense forms of play. You can also wear yourself out doing those things, because even though it's not happening physically to your body, your brain is still exerting energy that it could be using to fighting off the illness, to coping with what's going on in your brain and like intense emotions. And obviously things like stress and heightened states of arousal, like emotional arousal, can elevate the amount of time it takes to heal something. So what I would think about doing is doing something that's very light, and if you wanted to play it all, light and mostly probably directed effort-wise by the top. So I'm thinking like praise kink, hanging out in a cage all day, you know, maybe doing something like long distance over, because even if, you know, maybe you have a partner who's, you know, close to you, or having somebody that you could play with in person, you know, not wanting them to get sick, especially if you, I don't know, you said virus, not specifically COVID, but you know, it's a virus. So if it's flu or COVID or anything like that, you know, especially if it's COVID, even like really high mental exertion is not really great, especially in the initial infectious period for recovery purpose. So be very, very gentle with yourself. But I would think about like, you know, being ordered to do self-care, praise kink, maybe something if maybe you live with a partner and it's like, hey, they've already been exposed. You know, it is what it is. I can't elevate the risk of them getting sick at this point. Maybe doing something like, you know, some kind of massage activity, something that would feed your dynamic, and that might be fun to play with, but is not necessarily going to be super mentally taxing. I would probably stay away from hypnosis, especially like a first time experience, because I think associating hypnosis with being sick probably isn't an association that you want to make with a new activity. But if it was something that you had more familiarity with and it wasn't a first time thing, maybe doing some really gentle like hypnosis. Oh fuck, I knew I was forgetting something. Oh my god, I forgot my my fan. Okay, 1 second. BRB, getting my fan. All right, we should be good. I should be coming back here in a second. There we go. Okay. In my defense, somebody called me 15 minutes before my stream was about to start, and I was on the phone while I was trying to get my stream ready, and I did not think about grabbing the fan while I was on the phone. So, in my defense, that's what happened. Okay, so any alternative ideas to doing sick was the question that we were on. I love Evie's artwork. I wonder who drew them. Information about everyone who's done art for my live stream is in the description box. If you want to open that up, it'll give the names and places where everyone that did art for my channel can be found if you like it. Which, if you like it, you should definitely go support them. Very reasonably priced. And I would highly recommend working with everybody that I have on that list, including the people who made music for my stream and all of that as well. Yeah, but especially if you are sore and grumpy, yeah, I'd probably mostly take it easy. Everything is effort. It just becomes noticeable and taxing when sick. Yeah, it just is, even more intense than it normally would be. But here's a question that probably doesn't have an easy answer. Well, ask it away. I'm not necessarily saying you need to try and stump me, but I'm not afraid of a tough question. Not afraid of a tough question. Oh, thank you, Twixie, for the 5 gifted memberships. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it, and welcome to all of our new members. You can now use all of our beautiful emotes in the chat if you would so like. All right, next up we have one from James. Oh, interesting question from James. Is dark age play a red flag now? I think this is probably meant to say munch, but says much. I went to a munch and the discussion was about dynamics, talked about my dynamic in a very PG way, and other age players were upset. Luckily, I am known at this munch. Okay, so I think you have inadvertently stumbled upon one of the long-standing conflicts that I know of as an outsider, at least, in the age play, ABDL, DDLG, CGL world, and that is dark age play and playing with dark and or intense themes alongside those other aspects of play. Those things, to my knowledge, are something that have always been controversial. It's not necessarily a new red flag, but a lot of communities that focus around, again, ABDL, DDOG, CGL, anything like that, that general world, right? A lot of groups really believe that there is a very bold line that separates what they consider to be like safe for work or appropriate or decent, okay, good behaviors, and then the dark, icky, bad side. I've seen people online. Oh, okay, this is not related to the thing we're currently on, so we'll get to that next, Mr. Beansman, but thank you for your question, and we will get to that. But I would not say it's a red flag personally. I think everyone just has their own personal ick, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, in order to feel comfortable with their own kinks and their desires, they've decided that, like, well, my version and my way of doing this kink is good, but those people over here, they're bad and icky and wrong because of the way that they're doing it, when in terms of the scientific data that we have, the research we have, there's no evidence that any way of engaging in dark age play with a consenting adult, the important part, leads to anything or means anything about the person in terms of, like, you know, if you're doing, you know, happy, nice, wholesome age play, you're not more or less likely to be into more or less dangerous things than somebody who does, like, darker role play that maybe involves, like, you know, brainwashing or kidnapping or CNC or whatever element you happen to incorporate into your play. But definitely bringing up those darker elements, those edgier elements in mixed company, especially a munch and not in a specialized group for that purpose, is gonna be a mixed bag of reactions. And even if, you know, 9 people out of 10 are comfortable with that, usually the 10th person who's really not comfortable with it at all is gonna make you aware of their feelings, because they're probably gonna have a pretty strong visceral disgust reaction to you bringing up that particular way of engaging in kink. So I understand why they would be upset, but I don't think it necessarily means anything about you, and I think they're probably making some assumptions and probably having a reaction just based off of kind of how they've decided to rationalize their own kink interest to themselves, and it doesn't mean anything negative about you, but I'm sorry you're going through that. But there are definitely other groups and other people that are much more open about that kind of thing. You might actually have more luck at going to a munch. And also, like, what counts as dark age play is, like, such a big world too. Like, for some people, dark age play means, like, really heavy role play themes that people can be uncomfortable with. Like, you know, again, the CNC, kidnapping, brainwashing, things like that. Or dark age play can just mean, like, having sex while you're in your, like, you know, age play outfit. And that, for some people, just anything sexual counts as, like, dark age play, which I don't personally think is the case, like, by and large, but some people see it that way. Some people see it that way. And so the way that I think a lot of people have worked it out is they usually have, like, if not separate groups, separate times at age play events for people to do different levels of engagement, because any way of engaging in it is valid, whether it's the lighter, happier, you know, sticker coloring book unicorns approach, or if it's the heavier, darker, more roleplay focused side of things. Yes, you have the Q&A bar. Yes, I just got it as far as I know, so I'm sure other streamers have probably gotten it before me, but I've just noticed it. But yeah, I don't think it's a red flag. Is the short answer to that question there, James. But feel free to follow up with additional information, and I am sorry you're getting judgment because, oh boy, howdy, do people that are into age play and ABDL get a lot of judgment even from inside of the community. A question about how to approach DS and relationships as a sub with a switch. Oh, okay, so you are strictly a submissive and your partner is a switch. So the answer is it depends what kind of switch they are, because some people who are switches are there's like kind of three, maybe more than that, different kind of main approaches to being a switch. First of all, number one, does your person who's with you, who's a switch, lean one way or the other? So are they a top leaning switch, a dom leaning switch, a bottom leaning switch, or a sub leaning switch? Right? So if you're a sub and they're a sub leaning switch, there's like, you know, maybe let's say between 25 to 10% of the time they would be comfortable being a dominant. And that's going to be a lot to work around. But if they're a dom leaning switch, or maybe only like 10 to 20% of the time they ever feel like being a bottom or submissive, that's going to be navigated in a different way. So they could lean one way or the other. Option two is they always play the same way with the same person. So maybe they have some dynamics where they're always a top, some dynamics where they're only ever a bottom, so on and so forth, different combinations, different labels, different relationship styles. And then the other way of doing it is they switch with the same person, but they don't necessarily identify with leaning one way or the other. So it's just very like mood based. You know, some days they wake up and they're like, I'm a dom today. Sometimes they wake up and they actually feel kind of more subby or bottomy, so on and so forth. So identify kind of what type of switch you're looking to develop a DS dynamic around. Two, especially if there's somebody who tends to have their switchiness dictated sort of more by mood and it's not necessarily as predictable, find a way to communicate where they're at with their switch side, especially if they want to switch with you, or they would feel switchy around you and therefore not feel like a dominant towards you at certain times or places. Give them a really clear way to be able to communicate that, like, and establish a protocol around doing that, like very early on in your negotiations and in your contract or whatever it is that you're working with. And then three, ideally try to come up with stuff that if you want to implement rules, protocol, etc., that they can help you with regardless of what mindset they're in at the time. So if you want to have continual rules and structure, you want to have maybe some kind of check-in every day, find something that'll work with no matter what side of the slash that they happen to be on at that point in time. Because let's say they're a dom leaning switch, but they feel kind of like bottomy occasionally, and maybe you have a rule where you have to tell them whenever you drink a glass of water every day. And as a dominant, this is about kind of controlling your water intake and monitoring you and having access to you. But then maybe when they're in more of a submissive mode, maybe this takes on more of the flavor of like caring for someone and providing an act of service. So it's something that can work sort of with both sides of the mindset, depending on what motivates them to those different actions and just generally how they approach switching by and large. So it's definitely something that can be done. It is trickier just because there's an extra layer of just volatility in there from the fact that they are a switch. But even if you want something 24/7, it can totally work. But you don't even necessarily have to go 24/7 to begin with, right? Like maybe you have some other way of doing this, or maybe just like when you're together in person and they feel dominant, maybe you come up with sort of two different lists of like, you know, standing orders, rules, protocol, etc. that you follow based on if they feel dominant or not that day. And maybe the first thing they do in the morning when they get up is they communicate to you if they're having more of a dominant day, more of a submissive day, more of a bottom day. And then based on that, there's different, again, rules, protocol, structure that you follow in terms of what titles you address them with, how you interact with them during the day, what tasks you're doing. And I think that's really going to be the key. It doesn't have to be super complicated as long as they can communicate to you where their headspace is at or how they're feeling. The rest actually doesn't have to be super complicated as long as you have different plans for what you're doing. And then just keeping up with the general communication as you go on and you develop your relationship. But again, it really depends on the type of switch that the person is because it can just vary a lot. Yes. Yes. We wrapped up that question. I will go back to Mr. Beansman's super chat now. Oh my god, there's so many tabs. YouTube, maybe you figure out a different way to organize these tabs, because it sort of feels like I'm navigating an email inbox at this point, trying to read all these different types of chat messages. Alrighty, I'm gonna go over to Mr. Beansman's, and then we're gonna go to Sean had a FetLife story and info that we're also gonna chat about a little bit. I've seen people online do box tie-like designs for tape bondage. Would this give the same risks as with rope on the nerves? So speaking as somebody who's not a rope top, I don't know for sure. My intuition is that it would probably carry a lower level of risk, but not no risk. Like, I'm somebody where, like, all right, well, you guys can't really see it because this dog camera's in the way, but like my like nerve bundle is like, first of all, not a lot of tissue covering between me and my nerve bundle, but like it's like basically like right here. And like even with like, I can even kind of feel it now, just like putting a little bit of like pressure on it, just that way, just from like one finger with relatively light pressure, right? So depends on the person. If they're somebody who is already not very sensitive in TKs or box ties, probably going to be an even lower level of risk with tape bondage to maybe like a not noticeable, like to the point where it's not really even noticeable. Whereas if you're somebody that has pretty like sensitive higher up, because everyone has different nerve pathways, right? So like some people it goes closer to the skin, other people it goes down deeper. Totally depends. Humans are weird. Some people have their whole organs flip-flopped around. Some people have hearts on the opposite side of their chest. Like nerve bundles can pop up in unexpected locations based on just differences in being printed, right, as opposed to what the human anatomy chart says where our bodies are supposed to have things. So my belief in where this would have a different level of risk is it's about the distribution of pressure. So the wider the point of pressure being distributed, right, the more dispersed the pressure is, therefore it's not digging in as much, therefore it's going to be applying less pressure in a smaller, over a wider area. That's less confusing to say it that way. So if you have, like, let's say a 5mm piece of rope, right, that's pretty, tight against the arm, that's going to be, ooh, I just did, that's, beep, remember that nerves are there. Like, that's going to be putting way more pressure over a small area. Whereas if it's tape, right, and it's maybe like this thick, even more pressure around a wider area is going to be putting less pressure on that individual singular point, if that makes sense. So it's not no risk, but it's probably going to be lower risk. And also because with tape bondage, because it's flat as opposed to something that's like round, it can kind of dig in more. Like tape doesn't like dig in necessarily the same way that rope does. And that also might make a difference for some people's nerves. But yeah, I'm going to say it's not a no risk scenario, but I think it's going to be a lower risk scenario just because of how people generally do tape bondage and the way that pressure might end up being distributed. But you're still going to want to do all the usual nerve check-in things that you do. You're still going to want to like monitor for your hands going numb. Like, honestly, for me, the big reason I don't do TKs like with pretty much anybody is because of the risk of like hidden nerve damage, because I tend to go numb like really, really quickly in pretty much any box tie I've been in, especially one where my arms are behind my back. And so even if, like, beyond that, it's just uncomfortable. But even if it wasn't uncomfortable, the other factor is because my hands are numb, I can't as easily tell if things are just numb or if there's nerve things also happening that I should be aware of. So just in order to lower my own risk, that's not something that I generally do. But that's a really good question, Mr. Beansman. But yeah, it's not an easy answer on that one. But there's not really a lot of resources for tape bondage. I'd love to see more classes on that. Would love to see there be more education around that in the community. Absolutely. All right, and then, alrighty. Oh, does it not tell me? All right, I'm gonna go back to the, there's not enough damn characters for my question, man. I used the Q&A thing. Oh, did you? Let me see. Definitely feel free to, if you want to follow up, I can just check your other chat history. So if you want to follow up with like more information from what you put in the Q&A, I can definitely read that out loud as well, and that's not a problem. Recently started using the red, yellow, I'll give you a second to add more. I'm going to get to this one real quick, and then I will do the Divine Exorcist question if they get the opportunity to add more if they would so like. Recently started using the red, yellow, green safe word system. I'm struggling because I feel like I get into a space where I'll never want to say red and feel like I've been bad if I do. Oh, that's such a common feeling, Grace. I'm so sorry. Yes. Okay, so there are a couple things to work around this that we can definitely use. So one is do some, like, not quite reality checking. I'm sure there's like a CBT term for this that like I'm not aware of that's like more official. But my version of that is let's like decondition you from the fear/guilt response that you have to saying the word no. And how do we do that? We say it a lot. And we are going to make it a thing that feels comfortable. So what we do is we do drills where we say our safe word. And even if you're just practicing it in like a normal headspace, not during play, you can just do things where you practice doing a scene where maybe you do a little quick spanking, 5 minutes, do whatever activities you like doing for 2, 5, 10 minutes. And then you negotiate that once those 2, 5, 10 minutes are up, your partner asks you for your color, and then you are supposed to, you have to say red. And then when they do, they like lavish you with praise. You're like, yes, I'm so thankful for that. You're so brave. Thank you for telling me red. And then maybe you do, if you're into like physical affection with this partner, maybe they give you a little forehead kiss, maybe they give you a little piece of chocolate, give you some kind of reward for having said the word no that feels scary. And then as you're practicing it, you just extend the time that you're doing kind of these mini test scenes where you're supposed to say red. Like you're doing fire drills for saying your safe words, and then you're getting a reward for saying them whenever it comes up. If that even by itself feels like too much, you could literally just start by like saying the word no and having your partner ask you to say no. And every single time you say no, you get like a little, I don't know, like a little chocolate covered raisin. Or I don't know, maybe people don't like those. Maybe chocolate, a little M&M, a Skittle, a gummy bear. You know, every no gets a gummy bear. Every no gets an M&M. And then you start to associate saying no instead of just being a fearful thing. You're doing two things. One, making a positive association with saying the word no, while two, also desensitizing you from the fear and the shame reaction to having to say the word no, because you're seeing that no one's punishing you, no one's leaving you, you're getting no possible bad outcomes from saying the word no or stop or red. And then that is getting also replaced. Like you're doing kind of two things at once, if that makes sense. So that's how I would probably approach it. And then eventually, once you feel really comfortable with being able to say no in those practice areas, then you can get into instead doing it during a scene itself. Or maybe you negotiate that during the scene, you know, at some point in time, and I would do this at home. I wouldn't do it at like a dungeon because this kind of thing could be confusing for other people to witness, and you don't want to cause confusion with DMs. You know, that's not the kind of setting to do this in. But if you're playing at home, maybe you negotiate to do scenes where your partner says, at some point during the scene, and I'm not going to tell you when, I'm going to ask you to say red, or I'm going to ask you to say no, and then you have to say it. And then you know that you're going to get that same thing you got before. You're going to get the M&Ms. You're going to get the forehead kiss. All the same things are in play, but now you're doing it in a real scene setting where they're going to instruct you to do it, and it's like an obedience thing to like follow them to do it, which maybe works better for your brain than you having to do it for yourself. And again, they praise you. They do all of that good stuff. They show you it's not scary. And then eventually you take those training wheels off entirely. And then by that point, after doing this enough times, you hopefully should feel more confident using your safe word. Other alternative is that you use something else entirely that's not a red, a no, anything that has a negative connotation for you that's a safe word. And maybe that kind of hacks around your brain, because then you don't feel like a failure because you're not using a word that your brain associates with failure. But I think probably the deconditioning would be helpful regardless. Yeah, glad I could help. Hopefully that works out for you. And good luck. LOL, Sarah, I'm new enough that I actually was going to ask what CBT meant. Yeah. That's, yep. Well, you know, in that particular use case, I did mean cognitive behavioral therapy, because we're reframing, we're trying to do some exposure stuff. You know, it's kind of that general wheelhouse, but in this case, I did not mean the other kind of CBD. Yeah. Always use praise. Listen, it's like with dogs, right? Like if you're training a dog, use what the dog's motivated by, right? If your dog isn't motivated by treats, don't train them with treats. If your dog isn't motivated by cuddles, don't train them with cuddles. If they're really food motivated, attention motivated, play motivated, walk motivated, use those as rewards, and that will help you get what you want. So whether it's praise or little treats, combination of A, B, and C, do what works for you, and that'll hopefully help you out. Yes, and then as a reminder, if you want to have your question answered, please use either the Q&A feature, or you can use _Q, and it'll add it to the question queue. If you don't do that, I'm not necessarily going to be able to read to or get to your question, just as an FYI. I'm just going to keep reminding people annoyingly every like 20 minutes during the live stream, just in case anyone forgets. But now I'm going to get to Divine Exorcist's question. So I am a dom struggling with the top version of dysphoria, for lack of a better word. Do you have any advice for a top struggling to remove biases on certain things so I don't feel weird approaching? And then I'm going to tab over here and I'm going to look at the rest of their message, because I know there was a couple in there. All right, going to get to the rest of this. What advice for tops that struggle with heavy power dysphoria? Dysphoria isn't probably the best word, but like tops that refuse to do certain things they attribute to being submissive. As a top myself, sometimes I struggle with reaching out to people first. I usually let them come to me. I would like to figure out how to change this myself without feeling like I'm betraying myself. I'm basically killing my relationships because I find approaching people to be submissive. Not sure when this started, but it's slowly been seeping into other aspects of stuff. I feel like I've hurt my subs a bit because I have shut down till they approach me. Oh, okay, this is so interesting. Okay, so really good question. So basically, from what you're saying, it sounds like the problem you're dealing with is, I feel like approaching people or requesting things makes me seem submissive, and so when I do it, it feels like I'm betraying part of who I am. And there's a couple of different methods that we could go down with this. One is we do kind of the top version of actually the method I just talked about for like deconditioning and doing exposure stuff around using a safe word and saying rad. And we do the same thing as a dominant application of this with requesting things from your partner, right? And I think the way to do that in that case would be to start from a position where you're making requests when your partner is in as submissive a state as possible, right? And I'm not saying to make new requests about things and like, you know, this gets into a little bit of like you're potentially playing with somebody has space, but the understanding is that we are practicing saying questions. We aren't necessarily really going to do the things that are being requested, but we're doing it in a place where you're in a dominant position, your partner's in a submissive position, and hopefully that helps you. So for example, maybe you are reclining with your boots on in an easy chair, and your partner is kneeling and acting as your footstool, and while they are your footstool, you ask them, footstool, I would like it if next time you would serve me in this way. Also, I think phrasing questions and requests in a dominant way, if it's with a dynamic with an existing partner, can also be helpful too. So thinking about how you're phrasing questions might be helpful here. And then when they reply, they do so in an effusive way where they're very submissive and they're like, yes, sir, it would please me greatly to be able to serve you in this way, or like whatever makes sense with your protocol and role play you like to do and yada yada, but some flavor of that where you're in a very dominant position, they're in a very submissive position, and there's basically no way to cognitively construe what's happening here is you being submissive. Like, and hopefully practicing doing that, even if you're not acting on those requests you're making, you're just practicing saying them will help. So that's one step that we could do. The other thing that we can do is maybe instead of you like having to go out and proposition people, again, if you have an existing partner, maybe one thing that you can do is you can establish a ritual where maybe your partner asks you first, like, sir, is there anything that I could do to please you? or again, some flavor of that matches with your role playing, your dynamic, and yada, 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 right? So instead of you having to open the door, they're starting by maybe like once a week asking a question and checking in with you about, okay, here's your opportunity to tell me what you want, and I want to please you. I'm telling you as an S-type, as your bottom, I want to please you. Tell me how I can do that. And so you're not making a request, but you are still giving opportunities for people to receive that information on a regular basis. And as far as the other thing here with this is I'm getting the sense that there could be more going on here than, like, I don't know if maybe this is like maybe avoidant attachment stuff going on potentially, if there's something else happening here that's maybe deeper that would need to be dealt with in a more holistic way. Like, does this appear in your other relationships? Is this just something that comes up with BDSM, or has this happened in vanilla relationships in your family of origin? You know, so on and so forth. Is this an avoidance thing, or maybe this is more specifically tied to BDSM? I think is an important question. I think another important question is just in general, like, what is it? Like, it sounds like you have a pretty good sense, which is that, like, it's because it makes me feel submissive. That's why I feel like I'm shutting down until they approach me, which actually I think is, like, for different reasons, is a common-ish problem with D-types, is they don't want to approach because they actually don't want to be seen as imposing on people, and they don't want to inadvertently violate somebody's consent by feeling like they're pushing something onto someone by being the one to approach. But yeah, I think general desensitizing and getting affirmations from your partner if they like and want that can be a good thing to do. And giving your partner opportunities to support you in a way that, like, makes sense for your dynamic. Like, this is it's like not, I don't really know if I want to use the phrase willpower, but this is like, you have a decision matrix, right? Okay, you've identified that you are doing a behavior that is not serving your relationships. Great, fantastic. Takes a long time to get there for a lot of people. Great, perfect. Love that we're there. Now, you're at the point where you have the power to make new decisions about what you do as a result of that. And so you might cognitively understand, I know this doesn't really make me submissive, but the fear, it feels really prominent, and I'm having trouble getting past that. So the next step that we take after that, we've identified the behavior. Now we want to choose to behave in a different way. So in order to be able to do that, one is to do things in a way that reduce the fear response. Reduce or disgust or whatever, the shame, whatever negative emotions come up as a result of, like, you thinking about asking somebody a question. That can mean asking smaller questions. That can mean phrasing them in a different way. Definitely making sure you're in a good emotional state while you're doing this, right? So, like, not at, like, midnight on a Tuesday at a stressful time at work, right? Do it in a generally good, regulated headspace, so that way you're not activated when you're doing it. But just, like, choosing to be brave, even if once, right? You recognize that moment when you're at the decision point, when you're thinking, I don't want to do this, I'm scared because I feel like it might make me feel submissive. There's sort of three options at this point that you can do, right? So you can, one, you can do what you normally do and not say anything. Two, you can be really brave and say the question anyways. And you can be like, I'm going to dive off the deep end. I'm at a moment where I know that I have the power to choose differently, and I'm going to follow that, because that actually is really dominant. Confronting your fears, having self-confidence, wanting to grow, that's actually pretty fucking dominant. So I'm actually going to do that option because that is rad as hell. And that actually makes me more dominant if I'm doing that. But that's scary. So third option that we have is you communicate to your partner that you want to say something, but you feel scared about it, and give them the option to open up to you and make that space for you to make that safe. So instead of saying, here's my question, you can say, or here's my request, you can instead approach it like, there's something that I would love to share with you, but I'm feeling nervous about it. Can you give me some reassurance? And that also might feel a little bit submissive to ask for that reassurance, but you gotta kill that part of your head, and you gotta start somewhere. And hopefully doing that maybe actually feels less risky than full out asking the question. But having your partner, or maybe somebody who's a friend that you play with or whatever, who can hold that space for you to ask those kinds of questions will help out with that. Also related to my early question, found the key for using duct tape for bondage without painful body hair loss is cheap upper length mesh gloves and pantyhose. Ooh, that's really good. That's great. But yeah, that dealing with emotional shutdown is really hard, and usually coping with that involves like noticing the feeling coming up. When you notice that feeling coming up, doing some emotional regulation skills to help decrease the amount of emotional intensity. And then, like, I would even say too, like, pre-follow a script. Like, if you want to go the route of first, I'm going to tell my partner what I'm feeling and then allow them to open up the floor before I leap into the question or the thing that I want to request, like, write it out ahead of time. Don't make your brain do the cognitive work of thinking of a response or what to say in the moment. Just beforehand, come up with a stock phrase that you want to say to communicate what it is that you're feeling. So it could be literally what I said before about, like, there's something that I'm really excited to share or talk to you about. Frame it in a positive way, right? Okay, this is fun. You're excited. You're doing something that they want you to be doing, which is asking questions. You can say, I know that you've requested for me to communicate more, but I'm feeling nervous about it, and is it something I'm excited about sharing? Can you help me with that? Right? So just something really quick and easy like that. Put it in a notes app, have it there for you to copy and paste when you need it, and then put it in the chat, so that way you're not doing any cognitive work while also dealing with emotional feelings as they're coming up. So that would be what I would do for that. And hopefully that'll help out. And the other thing too is, again, those like emotional regulation skills. So, you know, doing deep diaphragmatic breathing, doing like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you want, you know, emotional regulation skills, there's like tons of free resources for different approaches for that online. And then the fun thing about this is if you're dealing with guilt and shame or worrying that you're not acting in line with, you know, who you see yourself as, the more that you do it and the more that you see positive responses to what you're doing, the less you will have an intense emotional response to that over time. So it's a 2-for-1 thing if you're doing what your partner's like. And actually, that's another thing too, is like, think about what your values are too. Like, just remind yourself as you're doing this, like, I'm actually, if I want to have healthy relationships, I want to have good partnerships. I know that when I'm doing this, when I'm ignoring people, when I'm not asking for what I want, I am not living in line with my values. I'm not doing what I want to be doing, and using that as a motivation, because dominance means being confident, acting in line with your values, self-growth, blah, blah, blah. Actually, I'm being more dominant by choosing to act within my values and by doing something that is scary. And maybe that also can help out as well. But good question. Very, very good question. And hopefully that gives you something to think about. All right. And thank you so much for the middle of the stream gifts, Sean. I really appreciate that. Alrighty. Okay. I see something here that I don't think is a question. Oh, vet wrap is a really good one. Vet wrap them and then duct tape over the vet wrap. Yes, that's a good one too. Okay, I'm gonna answer one more question here from the YouTube, and then I'm gonna go over to the YouTube. What am I, a boomer? Jesus Christ. Gonna answer one more here on YouTube, and then we're gonna go over to the queued questions that are on my end. How does one not confuse low self-esteem and being submissive? So, good question. There are definitely people who confuse the two of them. And it's because they have a misunderstanding of what it means to be and looks like to be submissive. A lot of people misread me as being dominant because I live stream and make videos for a living. So I have to appear some degree of confident on camera, because if I didn't, would any of you listen to me or subscribe? Probably not. Like, who listens to somebody on stream who's like, oh, well, like, I don't know, maybe I think this could be it. Like, nobody listens to somebody like that. You have to talk like you know what you're talking about, because hopefully you do know what you're talking about, because otherwise why are you educating people? So you have to have a degree of confidence to do what I do. So a lot of people like mistake me for being dominant because they think that confidence I think is actually part of being submissive and dominant, but manifests in different ways and it takes on different roles. But to be, I think, a healthy submissive, you do also need to have a degree of confidence and self-esteem as well. So a lot of people think that being submissive is about like looking like you're a doormat and that you don't respect yourself and that you just don't know how to make your own decisions. Somebody has to control your life because you can't do it on your own. And like, you know, you're just completely helpless and somebody else has to put your life together for you, and that you're doing it because you don't like who you are. I would say the main difference I would see, like there are definitely people who are submissive and do also have low self-esteem. That does exist, but there's nothing in submission that is inherently about self-hatred, low self-esteem, not liking yourself, not having confidence, yada, 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 so on and so forth. And I would identify the difference is that somebody who is a submissive is doing something, you know, that is for their own pleasure. They advocate for themselves. They are not afraid to set boundaries. They know their limits. They know how to communicate. And a lot of S-types, I would say maybe even more so than having low self-esteem, can have a history of people-pleasing as a way of navigating life. And that can be a problem. But knowing kind of where their own limits and boundaries are, being able to communicate, and yeah, I would say that that is probably the basics of how it would manifest compared to somebody with low self-esteem who's, you know, not going to be somebody who's inserting themselves into things, is not going to talk about their own boundaries, their own limits. They're going to try to figure out what the other person wants and goes with that. Like a submissive is going to like negotiate for what they want and ask for their own needs to be met in that, and they're not going to agree to something that isn't going to serve them. Whereas somebody who has just low self-esteem is like, oh well, I need someone to dominate me, because I think actually maybe that's a big part of it too that I haven't even mentioned, is like there are people out there who think that they have to be submissive because they hate themselves so much that the only way to get any kind of human attention is by being a doormat through being submissive. And that's a hard no. Like, if you see somebody who, in the way they talk and the way they act, maybe they even directly say something like this, they give off the impression that what they're doing is like, oh, well, like, I know that I'm not very good at anything and I'm not really that smart and, like, I don't know how to do anything on my own. And so, like, you know, I'm just looking for someone to, like, take care of me because otherwise, like, no one's ever going to want to interact with me. And so, like, I have to do this to, like, have relationships. If that's how somebody is talking about their approach to submission, I would say they're probably not really submissive. They're just somebody who's dealing with like low self-esteem problems and thinks that like the lowest bottom of the barrel you can be is a slave or an S-type, and that's how you get attention if you're not otherwise worth anything. Whereas somebody who's an S-type who is there because what they want to be doing is going to be excited, enthusiastic. It's an additive part of their life, and they probably have other things in their life that are also fulfilling and fun, with like friendships and work and hobbies. And being a submissive is part of who they are, and it's an important part of who they are in a lot of cases. It can be a big part of their life, but they're not doing it because they either want someone to like reinforce their negative self-beliefs, or because they think they're not worth anything beyond that, as though it's the lowest bottom of the barrel. Like they have pride in what they're doing. They like being a submissive. They want to serve a worthy partner, not just anybody who comes along. And they are looking to have something that they know they want to have in their life, but they're not willing to compromise in order to get there. Hopefully that gives you some ideas of how those two things are different. But yeah, the problem is that there's definitely overlap where like, I mean, there's like low self-esteem and like confidence issues come in all different shapes and sizes. So it's hard to say definitively, because it's not that you can't be an S-type if you also have low self-esteem. It just depends. Are you like, you know, the only way I'm ever going to be worthy of anyone ever paying attention to me is if I let them walk all over me, versus somebody who's like, I love being a submissive because it fills part of my, you know, inner needs, and it's fun to do and it makes me feel good about myself that I can serve somebody, right? Nodding really hard at this, yeah. Okay, all right, I am going to go back to, and really not back to, but for the first time, I am now going to look at the other questions that were gathered through the chat bot. So we're going to get to some more questions. Now, this actually is working out really, really well, I think. Unfortunately, because it seems to now be storing usernames as a hash and not people's actual names, I am not sure who is asking these questions. So hopefully you can recognize yourselves in these questions and you check in and see if your question got answered later. So, I'll get to, I want to answer a couple of these ones and then we're going to get to, Sean's FetLife thing. Any advice for someone who's just started out but is feeling very intimidated by making a FetLife profile to find education/munches? Yeah, FetLife is not the best designed website on earth. I will tell you that much. I would say if you just really want to be on there for FetLife munches and, you know, finding local events, if you're not really looking to socialize and join groups and have it be like a major social media hub of your life, you don't need to overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. Make it really bare bones. I would say the most important things would be like a decent photo, something that's in like shadow, maybe a toy, maybe some other kind of thing that kind of helps identify you and your interests. Like I know people whose profile photos are like a bundle of rope or a favorite stuffy. I know people whose names are like silly puns based on their username or are like just other things that they really like in life. Like I know people who their profile picture is like a cake or like pasta or any old thing, right? So just like find a photo of something. Find a photo that's yours. Don't steal one from the internet. Like find a photo that's of you. Really bare bones basic profile in terms of, okay, figure out what you want to put for your age, location, gender. How open do you want to be about that? I would say probably age and gender is fine, but you don't necessarily have to put your location. I know there's a lot of stuff for like DS relationships, dating, blah, blah, blah. And that's confusing. Don't worry about that. If you wanted to put anything for like roles or relationships, you could do something like exploring, questioning, you know, things along those lines, and not necessarily like, you know, listing out if you're a submissive or dominant or whatever, unless you know already that you lean towards being an S-type or dominant, then maybe you would want to put that in there. But just don't have a blank profile with no photo. And then for the text, you could just put a little 2-sentence blurb about like, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm really excited about exploring kink. And here's my BDSM test results, or, you know, I'm most curious about trying out XYZ thing, and that's it. If you just want to find munches and be identifiable for people after the munch later, that's all you have to do. If you're like, my profile picture is a picture of a princess capybara, people are going to find you. You don't have to spill your soul on your profile. I do that because I use FetLife for pickup play. I meet people on there that are going to the same events as me, and having a more thorough profile where I talk about like my relationships, my approach to kink, my favorite kinks, other people describe me. That gives people more information without me having to rehash that every time about like, how do you like to play? Are you a brat? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it just helps give people a quick glance of even knowing whether or not they want to play with me. But if you're not going to be playing, if you're not looking for relationships and you just want to go to events and education stuff, then you don't really need to put anything else on a profile. Listen, just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. As long as you have a picture and a decent username, you're doing a lot better than a lot of people. And that's all you're really going to need for people being able to contact you later. That's really it. My profile picture just says, I screamed, you screamed, the police came. It's awkward. Yeah. I would say memes are kind of like an edge case for me. If you made a meme and you really like it, or it's like a meme t-shirt that you're wearing, it's a picture of you wearing the meme t-shirt, I think that's okay. Personally, I'm not a fan of like meme profile pictures because they're pretty much always stolen from somewhere else, and that's technically not allowable on FetLife. And I think, like, I don't know, it's not for me. It's not like, you know, if somebody has a meme profile picture, I'm probably like, oh, well, we're not probably that compatible for play, because they're not taking this as seriously as I think that should be. And especially if somebody's profile is like 100 uploaded BDSM memes, I'm like, oh, dear God, this is not Imgur. What's happening? Confused. So yeah, it depends. Your mileage may vary. And the only thing I know is that I'm an S-type. Yeah, then you can just put like, I'm an S-type and I'm curious in exploring and finding new educational events. Perfect. Love it. That's it. It shows you put some level of effort in and you're not a blank profile, and that's a lot better than a lot of people, so you're having a good start. And that's it. That's all you need to have. But good question. Good question. All right. Hi, Evie. Have you read Venus in Furs by Seder Mosh? I'm curious to know your thoughts about it or any other classic BDSM book. I have not read Venus in Furs, and I've also not read Story of O. The most kind of classic piece of BDSM literature probably read is like... What's the oldest thing I've read? Probably the Sleeping Beauty trilogy. But is that like a classic? I haven't read like Planet of Gore either, but I wouldn't consider it like a BDSM classic. It's kind of a whole on thing. Having not read them, I don't really have a strong opinion about them. I would say that they're interesting from the perspective of seeing where the kernel of future popular kink started with like sadomasochism and pony play and bondage and like power exchange and training and things that we kind of take for granted as part of the community. Like, I think it's almost like how in like psychology people talk about the ego, for example, or the subconscious, and we sort of use those terms without realizing that Freud like invented them and like came up with those words. And it's such a huge part of the way that we communicate about our brains and cognition and psychology that it's not in our brains that's a term that somebody else kind of, you know, that we shaped the way that we had these conversations around words and ways of approaching things that other people developed. And likewise, I think those classic books with things like the way that they talk about collars and signs of ownership and training protocol and all this, that, and the other, even if maybe everyone who does kink wasn't directly inspired by those things on an individual level, they were still in the cultural background, and a lot of kinksters were using those as things that they wanted to replicate, and so it leaked out in different ways. So even if we don't necessarily think about the fact that things like, you know, pony play or contracts or bondage or whatever, interest in those things originally came from the kind of the popularization of these books, it's still very present there. So I think that's interesting. But, you know, it's like any other type of erotica or literature. Like, it's not a guidebook. It's not a primer on consent. It's a fun, interesting little thing. And if it sparks joy, read it, enjoy it, go for it. That's your prerogative. That's all good. Speaking of FetLife, I'm not going to go over to, I think Sean had sent something for the chat. Oh, wow, they have quite a list here. Yes. So this is actually something I think I talk about most of this. FetLife has once again changed its setting options. So I think my more recent video from like 2 years ago about how to use FetLife is a little bit outdated, but not outdated enough for me to refilm it entirely. My understanding is people who currently have concerns with making a FetLife account is, I guess, if you want to make a new account, at least in some places, they now make it so you have to upload an ID or do like some kind of age verification thing, which obviously not a lot of people are comfortable with. It's also why I am not currently verified on my FetLife account. But you can control things like who can follow you. You can control things like who can message you, who can friend you. So if you want your profile to just be for like finding education, you can make it so your inbox settings are like basically no one can message you except for friends. You can set it so that way there you have followers. You can set it so that way only people who are friends of friends can friend you. You can set it so that way you don't show up in like search results for a specific geographic area. You can set up who can tag you in photos. You can even make it so even if it's your inbox is more open, maybe profiles that don't have photos can't send you messages. Also, you can change who can invite you to events. And then you can choose what information in terms of pictures, posts, writing, are shared with other people. So with most things like posts and photos, you can make it so it's not publicly viewable on all of FetLife. And you can always put something like, you know, Alaska or Antarctica or the Vatican, is your location, which you clearly do not actually live in the Vatican City, but some people put their location as Vatican City, which I think is really funny. And more people choose as an alternative to Antarctica because I think that's funny. And then if you do select location to only me, it will automatically put your location to Antarctica. So there you go. That's that on that. And hopefully that will give you information on how to set up a profile in a more private way. But the next thing that Sean wanted to add is Wednesday I had a session with the dom I play with at my dungeon. After the ritual of her putting on my cuffs and collar on, I was blindfolded and secured with my back to the cross where I was flogged and then whipped with a single tail. Ooh. I was moved to the gingerbread man bondage table face down. Oh, okay. Yeah. I think I kind of picture what you're saying there. Oh, interesting. That's like not everywhere has that. Down where I was flogged, whipped, and paddled and caned. At one point, she used my hockey puck on a stick, which she had to swing with both hands to get a reaction out of me because I love thud. Subspace. Yeah, exactly. Quick break for hydration and cool off. Then I was secured to a standard bondage bed sitting with my back against the wall. There was caned across the top of my thighs, followed by some needle play to wrap up, which I think I did see the needle photos. Pictures on FetLife, but some are set to friends only. So if you want to see that, that is from Dernwin over on FetLife. And thank you for sharing. Since you had a really fun time, and I agree, thud is a great sensation. All right, so I'm kind of like bopping back and forth between like multiple different chats here. Yeah, I need to just learn for now so I can make sure I'm safe. Very worried about getting it over my head and my eagerness. Yes, yeah. I think if you just have a really simple, basic profile, you don't add a lot of people as friends, you don't have followers, you're going to be good. You're going to be good. The one person actually from Vatican City constantly wondering why he's striking out. Yeah. It's like, damn it. I'm actually here. Why can't I actually find anybody? Strong recommend reading Dialectic of Enlightenment, very detailed analysis of two of Desaad's pieces. Weirdly anti-kink, but still interesting. I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on how much you like philosophy versus having to stomach somebody's anti-kink bent. Because, yeah, just because you don't like Desaad doesn't mean like the modern BDSM scene is bad. Although maybe it ends up, giving you some insight into like, okay, what are anti-kink people actually thinking on a regular basis? Okay. All right, gonna go back to more questions here. Is this a question? Not sure if I'm the outlier or not on this one, but I personally find that I have to approach doming in the same sort of headspace that I craft in. Oh, interesting. That is a thing that I'm sure happens if you link your dominance to creativity. If you make your own toys, I could see why that would happen. All right. Any advice for someone who's just started out? And again, if you would like to have your question answered, you could either do exclamation point lowercase q and then put your question, or you can use the Q&A feature on YouTube. That is the upper kind of white bar that you can see, and maybe it's a different color if you are on light mode on YouTube, I realize, but the kind of upper pinned has my picture next to it. You can put your question in there and I'll also read it. Okay, I think I answered the one about FetLife already. What are some of your fave BDSM events / locations that you recommend for beginners in FSF? So I don't share the names of like dungeons or places that I go to, but if you're in the Bay Area, I will say there's not any particular venue that I would like not recommend. There's a lot of them. Find the one that's the most convenient to you. Start going to some munches. I would say if you want to go to a bigger event, Folsom is just around the corner. If you're already in the area, definitely check out Folsom. There's going to be lots of events in the weeks leading up to Folsom, and that's a great time to go to parties. If it's like 2 or 3 days before, the weekend before, it can be a little crazy, so just beware. The volume of people going out to events is not typical because there's going to be a lot of people traveling in to go to Folsom that don't live in the area. But that's a great way to get access to some other parties you wouldn't normally go to, extra little bonus events, try at different locations. Lots of ways to get involved there. As far as specifically for beginners, I actually think Folsom is fine for beginners. I don't know if there's any specific. I think it's more about looking for the right type of party. The same way that you would look for a location anywhere, I would just look for like beginner events. Like here, I'm not going to share names of specific places, but maybe I'll give you some like keywords to look for. If you want to check this out on FetLife later of like, oh, here's stuff that looks like it's probably going to be. Because I like to just show people how easy it is to find stuff on FetLife. Definitely not looking in Costa Rica. That's totally different. So I wanted to say, SOJ actually, I'll say SOJ because they're like one of the largest BDSM and oldest BDSM organizations in the country. SOJ, or Society of Janus, is a good one to check out. They have a munch. I'm not sure how often, but one that's I think like coming up really soon. There's actually there's Wicked Grounds. There is that's another like really big publicly advertised event, so I feel comfortable sharing that one. Wicked Grounds is actually having a Welcome to the San Francisco Bay Area Scene event very, very soon that you might want to check out. But I would look for there's actually a lot of stuff happening specifically at like the big organizations for SOJ and Wicked Grounds for like Kink 101, introduction stuff, welcome to the scene, friendly munch activities. But again, those ones are too like really big publicly advertised. You can find them on Google, like level of things in the Bay Area. So I don't mind sharing those. But those would be probably where I would look at. And then if you just look in general in the Bay Area, I would look for munches, meet and greets, newbie party, welcome nights, beginner 101 level, introduction, something along those things. If depending on what your age is, if you're 35 and under, I would look for TNG events as well. Also things like taster nights. Although a lot of the houses in the Bay Area have housetops, so you don't even necessarily need to do a specific night to have a taster. You can just go and have a taster at a lot of the events in the Bay Area, which is very nice, and most places don't have that. And then I think Folsom itself might also be doing some kind of like lead-up event stuff that you might be able to attend as well. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on in the Bay Area if you wanted to check that out. So yeah, lots of munches, lots of meetups. And I mean, if you're in the Bay Area, you are spoiled for choice, that's for sure. And like I said, there's not necessarily anything in particular that I would say you should avoid that I would talk about on stream. Oh, gotcha. I guess I didn't see that it was part of the Q&A. Or wasn't part of the Q&A, or like responding to somebody else. Okay, that makes sense. All right. What does top chat mean? And how is it different from the live chat? Okay, anyways. Okay, all right. So those are some event things. Loved your breakdown of 5 categories of kink, i.e. primal pain, etc. Could you theorize the connections between those 5 categories in Marx's conflicts, age, race, gender, class, religion? No. I don't know if that's a joke question or not. But I'm not gonna get into that. Any sort of, I don't know, things related to communism and religion and politics in depth is like probably not something I want to engage in on this stream anyways. This is a general rule of thumb because people do be having strong opinions about that kind of thing. But I appreciate the novelty of the question. Would it be possible to be a masochist and being a dominant, and how would it look like if it would be possible? Yes. You can be a sadist and a submissive, and you can be a masochist and be a dominant, and it is a thing because you don't necessarily have to be a dominant and a top all the time, though those two things often go together. So a dominant is someone who is receiving power and or authority in a relationship. A bottom is somebody who is receiving sensations or the action of the scene. And a masochist is somebody who enjoys receiving intense stimulation. So if you are a dominant, you can technically be bottoming if you order your partner as an act of service to hit you or to strike you with something or to do whatever forms of pain that you enjoy. There's actually quite a number of people I know who are dominant or who are tops who enjoy being tied up with bondage because they enjoy the comfort of the pressure sensation, because it's nice to feel like you're in a little bundled up, hug type thing, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything about what you prefer in terms of receiving power or in being in control of the scene. And I would say that's probably the main way that it gets played out in relationships as well as in pickup play with people, is in order to maintain their dominant state, like the person who is playing with them is maybe a service top or a bottom doing some kind of service activity for a partner where they are not in control of what's happening, and their partner, as they are playing, is like telling them, do this, do that, move up here, harder, softer, yada yada. Like they're being kind of like bossy, but they're really just being instructive over what kind of sensation they want to receive and if you're like meeting that expectation or not. So that's generally how it works. I think that's probably the best way that it works as like a starting point. But yeah, it's very possible. It's not a typical combination. I would say the other way that you could approach this that's even more unconventional is if you are doing something where maybe there's a way for your partner to like fight back during a scene, like you're doing like primal play, rough body play, wrestling, takedown and capture, that flavor, that side of things, and maybe you get your masochistic needs met by having a partner, scratch you, bite you, punch you, try to fight you off, and you enjoy that kind of stimulation. And eventually maybe you win, maybe you don't, maybe they get away. That's also why people do things like switch fights where, they're having a vie for dominance, and depending on who wins gets to be the dominant or the top for that scene. Similar flavor, but then in this case, the outcome is always predicted, i.e., even if the dominant gets really roughed up in that situation, they catch a couple punches, they get some scratches, they get their hair pulled in the person struggling against them, they're still ultimately going to be the one who's on top. So that's another way of approaching it that's a little bit less formalized, but I don't necessarily recommend that as a first way to do it, just because rough body play and wrestling and takedown and capture, anything of that flavor, is just so much higher risk for injury than a standard like sitting on a bench and like flogging someone kind of scene, even if you're barking orders at them, just because more limbs involved, more moving parts, more opportunities to fall down, conk your head on something, accidentally catch somebody in the face or the head or whatever, and we don't want to injure anybody. So all messages setting is the switch chat. Oh, I guess. Yeah. There's top chat, there's switch chat, and then there's bottom chat, which I guess is questions. if I had to label it. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm going to. I don't know if I love how much I have to like toggle between stuff to be able to do the current system that I'm doing, but I do want to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. The Marketplace series was a series that got me into everything a few years ago, and it was an amazing eye-opener for me. Oh yeah, I've heard really good things about the Marketplace series. I don't know if that's necessarily... Is it old enough to be a classic at this point? Because I guess there's like the OG classics, like The Story of O, and it may be sort of the second generation of classics is going to be that like the Marketplace series, which I really should read. It's been recommended to me a lot, but I would say like Sleeping Beauty trilogy, which is the one that I've read that's the oldest, is similar, like kind of second generation classic BDSM literature. Because but Sleeping Beauty trilogy also came out like before BDSM was a term that we used, so I don't know. That just seemed like it's pretty old when you think about it. But the Marketplace series, it's you know, I'm on the last book of a 9-book series, maybe 8-book series. And I'm probably going to take a little bit of a break once I'm wrapped up with that, but maybe that'll be my fall read. Will be revisiting the Marketplace series. I wonder if you make your profile pic that is so cringe that it becomes a meme. I mean, listen, just don't be Elon Musk and you're going to be fine. This is how I approach all new things, obsessive data gathering. It helps my anxiety. I feel you. I get that. Gathering a lot of information is always good. I'm also reading the new bottoming book right now. That's a great choice. It's a good place to start. Really, really good one. If you want other book recommendations for a beginner, depending on, again, what your interest in certain things are, I would probably also say, what else do I have that I recommend that is like right here? I would probably read Casey Cunningham's book, Conquer Me, and then I probably would read Anton Fullman's books, which is The Heart of Dominance, and I forget what the other book is called, but it's Anton Fullman, and one of his books is The Heart of Dominance, and the other one is, I can't remember, because for some reason the book is just not coming to my brain. But reading those ones, I think, will give you a good perspective. I'm not a huge fan of SM 101. That's like probably the one kink book. That's actually the only kink educational book I've ever started to read and then never finished. Because it came out in like 1995, and it's mostly about a guy talking about, like, at least the beginning part of it is a lot of him being like, yeah, I used to hook up with my old woman in the 70s, and like, it's just a different era, different time, different approach. I am sure there's good information in it, but I got like 100 pages in maybe, and I was just like, oh, this is a slog. I don't want to keep reading it. So maybe I missed out on some really vital, interesting information in there, but I don't think you need to read that one. If there's one that you were thinking about skipping, I'd maybe do that one as a no read. The problem with bondage tape is that I feel like you pay more for the length than something like duct tape. Oh, yeah. Bondage tape is better for not pulling out hair, but if you're looking to wrap somebody up head to toe, that gets expensive very quick with bondage tape. Duct tape, you're going to get more bang for your buck with that, absolutely. It just, the price you pay for hair removal. You got to think about, like, even you could do saran wrap, too. That's another option you could do as well. That, like, would give you the bondage feeling, but then wouldn't be tape, and then it wouldn't stick to your skin. So that's another thing you could do if you haven't thought about that. You could do, like, a clear plastic wrap and not necessarily anything with adhesive on it. And then that would you wouldn't even have to pay for two things. You wouldn't have to, because vet wrap also is pricey. So you don't have to even pay for opera gloves or vet wrap. You could just do the plastic wrap. And then it's clear, and then you can see through it, and then you can, like, draw things, and you can poke through it, and, it's, imagine the fun that can be had when you mummify somebody, and then you poke holes into their wrapping. Conditioner is a wonderful invention. Conditioner is great. It's really, really good for you. I'm trying to think of which Marxism is most pro-BDSM. Probably Google scholaring libidinal economy would answer that, although probably a divide between the free love folk and the BDSM folk. Someone has to have written a dissertation, but it's probably in the complet department. I would love the idea of somebody being like, I am getting my PhD in political economy, and I've decided to write my PhD thesis on BDSM and Marxism. Like, that is a novel contribution to the science. You could get a degree based on that, I'm pretty sure, if you want to do a PhD. Who else has ever thought of that before? Just started making plans for my first kinky weekend/extended trip, and I'm so excited. Went to go watch some of your videos for research and saw you were streaming, LOL. Well, welcome, Sierra. Glad you can make it. And feel free to ask any questions that you have. Googling Conquering Me. Just by the title, I have to ask. I'm a male identifying S-type. Book still applicable. I mean, it does talk from the female perspective, so That probably wouldn't be as good for you. I don't remember how gendered the language in it is from the top of my head to be able to say one way or the other. But yeah, then I might give that one a skip. But Anton Fullman's books are gender neutral and like should be fine. I think it's good for getting a perspective on like, you know, what healthy dominance can look like, and like, you know, I think it's good to study both sides of the slash, because it's self-development for the S-type, yes, for sure, but then also recognizing, oh, here's things that I can contribute to understanding my D-type better, forming that side of the relationship, for sure. Yeah, we only have 15 minutes left. 15-minute warning, you all. Definitely put some questions in the chat if you have not heard your question answered. I will try my best to get to it. Again, you can use !Q in the chat in order to get to it right away. You can also use the Q&A feature over on YouTube. I'm kind of trying to alternate between the two of them, and hopefully I will get to do that. Yeah, who would fund that PhD though? True. Who's funding any PhDs right now? Let's be honest with you. If you want to get a PhD in anything that's not like, I don't know, material science and like, I don't know, military history or something. Like, who's funding any PhDs? Because even if you're doing medical research, you know, fuck no, it's not happening either. No one has money for anything. Yay! How exciting. Yes, the topping book is a good one to add to. I read both of them very early on in my kink journey when I was new, and I think that they're both worth reading. And I would say I'm less strictly a bottom than I was then, but I'm still basically just a bottom in pretty much every situation. So I found reading the new topping book to be insightful as well for understanding more of that side of things. Any advice for doing CNC with a partner for the first time? Both the serious, like ensuring safety and mental health, but also the mundane, like being awkward during role play. I'm a switch, partner dom. And then it cuts off. So I hope that was, you just missed a closing parenthetical there. And there's not like part of this chat that's like lost in the ether somewhere that got eaten by the bot. So both the serious, like ensuring safety and mental health, but also the mundane, being awkward during roleplay. So here's my deal with how I approach CNC. I'm not like a heavy roleplay person. Like, I don't really do like dress up, pretend my partner is a pirate, like kind of stuff. Like, that just doesn't work for me. I'm not enough of a theater kid to do that. So when I do a CNC, and if that's not your thing, if that's your thing and you know it, include it. You don't have to have heavy roleplay elements to do CNC. Some people like doing it for CNC because it gives them the opportunity to make more of a mental separation between the character they're doing the CNC with and their actual partner, and then also with the character they're playing in themselves. So there's an advantage there if you feel like maybe it might be more mentally comfortable to have your partner play a different role in the roleplay. But if you don't already do that in play, like, I wouldn't necessarily start doing it with CNC just because it can be awkward to like pretend to be somebody that you're not. But for me, what I normally do with CNC is I'm just kind of like acting as who I normally am, and this is like just one aspect of my submission involves doing CNC, and so that's what my approach to it looks like with certain partners. And what I would say for a first-time approach to it is, like, number one, make sure you're on the same page for your motivations for why you want to do CNC. And like, what does that look like? When you say you want to do CNC, what do you think of? What does your partner think of, right? Are you thinking of like a ravishment scene and your partner is thinking of like a break-in scene where they like torture you for like 2 hours and then leave, you know? So get on the same page about what you mentally think about with CNC in terms of role play scenarios, flavor of play, type of play, is it sexual or not, where would it take place or not, get on the same page about that. And then my biggest recommendation for safety for this is practice the elements that you want to include in the CNC play individually before adding CNC to it. Because CNC is a very mentally taxing kind of kink play. And there's a lot of moving parts. And so if it goes wrong or a trigger happens, it can be hard to identify what actually went wrong if when you're doing CNC, you're suddenly doing 10 different things at once. So maybe you're doing things where they force your legs apart, or they put you in really heavy bondage, and they use zip ties, and they put you in a gag, and then they use a whip on you that never used before, and then they call you words they never called you before. There's 15 different things going on where you're like, I feel bad, but it's been such a rush of different things going on that I can't necessarily individually tell you which was the thing that was actually bad. And it might be multiple things, and one thing just kind of tipped the scales, yada, yada. So practice the individual scene elements that you want to do first. Get comfortable with them. Get comfortable using those toys and things. And then you can start to use those to build up a CNC scene. Okay, needed a water break there for a second. But doing CNC with a new partner, I think also not making it too complicated, not doing the complicated break-in, role play masked intruder scenario. That's hot for a lot of people. Wouldn't go there as a first step. So instead, I might do a first scene that's CNC where all you're doing is playing with saying the word no during a scene. You're doing the regular scene that you normally would do. Maybe they're using an implement that you consent to, but it's not your favorite. So I think that's kind of the bracket in which beginner CNC is a good tool to use. Is we all have preferences, right? So I like thuddy. I don't like most stingy impact play. So what CNC sometimes looks like for me is my partner doing a scene with me where they're forcing me to endure sensations that I don't enjoy, even when I'm I don't really play with saying the word no, but maybe I'm physically resisting and I'm acting like I don't want to have it happen because I don't want to have it happen and I don't like the sensation it's happening, but I'm still letting them do it to me because CNC. All right, that's the essential part of CNC is you are being made to do something that you don't want to do because you want to be made to do something that you don't want to do. It's a complicated way of phrasing that, I guess. There might be a maybe more thought out way of phrasing what CNC is, but that's really the element of it, right? So maybe your partner has a toy that you really hate using. Maybe there's a silicone paddle that's your arch nemesis, and it's not so bad that it's a hard limit, but you would never want to do a scene if you had the free choice that was only that kind of paddle. So maybe you do a scene where they're paddling you using that one least favorite paddle, and then you can fight back, you can say no, and they can say you can scream all you want, but that's not going to stop me, right? Maybe you do a little bit of the verbal role play in there of I'm going to do what I want to you, I control you, yada yada, and then that gives you a good taste of CNC just to start with. So again, it depends. What do you like about CNC? What motivates you to do it? Those are all good questions to be asking. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up there for that question because we have about 8 minutes left. So now is a really good time. If you've not put your question in the chat, do it now because I saw a couple people add last minute ones. So here's a warning. Also, this is an AFYL, by the way. I threaten you. Put your questions in the chat now or else. Or don't. I'm not your boss. Unless I am. In which case. All right. Yeah, thank you. You're very welcome. Going back to the stream title, do you think a formal contract is a good idea for all dynamics or even just all long-term dynamics? It really depends on the people involved. So my hot take, my hottest simmering, boiling over hot take about contracts is that I think that most people don't need a contract in the sense of a very formalized, stylized, long list of the rules and structure of a relationship. And the reason why I think a lot of people don't need them is I think they can be beneficial, but you have to use them to be beneficial. And if you're not using them, if just making them is the fun part and then you stop, then just have a little scene where you do a play contract for funsies and then don't really use it. But I think I don't know. So I think the hard part of having a contract is there's a lot of very neurospicy people in the community, especially people with ADHD. And while a contract can be a very useful reference point for somebody with ADHD, they have to remember it's there. They have to remember it between the times that they read it. And oftentimes their preferences are mutable enough to where the terms of the contract, like a contract would have to be like rewritten pretty often to keep up with the dynamic of like the ADHD person's interests and so on, especially early on in a relationship when they're figuring out kind of what they want from kink. So instead, I would probably recommend, if you want to have something that is a contract, keeping it really bare bones. Again, the theme of today is just keeping it simple, keeping it very to like the things, the must-haves, right? The safe words, the limits, the stated boundaries. If you have any ongoing 24/7 rules like title usage, ways of addressing people, keep those in there, and then just keep it really, really, really simple and have it be more flexible than kind of the traditional contract is sometimes thought of as being. I think I think the part of the contract that is the most useful is having a living document that allows you to reflect on the stated values of your relationship, the goals of your relationship, and the path that you're both heading down and have agreed to follow together. Where I think people get stuck is they try to make the contract include everything and then make it really onerous to actually be able to follow, because they start from like nothing and then they sign a contract and then suddenly they've got 25 rules and 3 nightly protocols and this, that, and the other. And like, that does not work for most people. So just keep it really simple. Keep it more as like, I would almost use it for a lot of people more as a way of documenting like things that you are implementing in the relationship as they come about naturally, or as you choose to do them piecemeal and add them into a formal structure. So if you are living with a partner, maybe you decide to ask them one day to pick out your clothing for work. And then you kind of keep that up as a habit for a little while and you decide it's both fun and then you keep doing it. And then eventually that naturally gets ritualized in your relationship to where like, hey, we kind of are just doing this thing where I'm asking you permission for what clothing I wear every day. Let's put it in the contract so we like, document that it's a core part of our relationship. So I think doing that is probably a good approach in general, but I have found that generally speaking, for at least my relationship experience, having a traditional formalized contract with like everything completely written down and written out and expected to be followed to the letter, like doesn't work with people who are not neurotypical generally, unless they don't have ADHD, in which case it may be different. But for the people in my life whomst I care about deeply and appreciate and love having around, like they'd have to just have it. You could put the full contract in front of their computer screen every day and they will forget something on it. I think that just ends up serving to be disappointing and doesn't work with people's brains. So finding a tool that works with people's brains, I think, is more important. I feel like we're getting through a lot of questions today. This is a very efficient question-based stream. I love it. Any advice for getting familiar with, or maybe just gaining confidence with, a new partner's safe word system? I'm starting plans with a bottom/sub who uses a different one than me for the first time. Ooh, that's a really good question. So as the top, I think probably the key for that is just, I don't know if that means like maybe they only use mercy, or they only use the traffic light system, or maybe they only use a red but not yellow or green. And I think, again, the thing to do there is just like doing some practice stuff with them and having really, really frequent check-ins. Like if it's a new partner, you really should be doing this anyways, but doing like shorter little scenes, hour or less, 30 minutes or less, maybe even depending on, your familiarity with this person at this point. And having frequent check-ins during that experience, maybe once every 10 or 20 minutes, depending how long the scene is, at minimum, and just saying like, hey, how you doing? And that will help you get trust as the dom or the top that like, oh, if my partner needs a safe word, they can communicate with me. Or maybe they can't. Maybe you check in with them and they're like, oh, well, like actually, and then you're like, okay, well then that's like a no. We're not going to keep going because you are not having a fun time, or this is like, let's plan around this. What are we going to do differently? How do we want to change this? But doing little short practice scenes, I think, is probably the best way to do it. And then as you gain more confidence with each other, as you understand each other's nonverbal and verbal communication style, then I think just over time and practice, it'll be a lot easier. All right. Why did you make your new picture look this way? What does that mean? I made it. I wanted a new profile picture. I gave an artist pictures of me and then said, draw me. And then that's what they made. I don't know. Weird question. Okay. Yeah, there's deep psychological meaning behind my doodle avatar that no one understands. All right. Last question for today. I met a woman on a Saturday at the meet and greet I organized. I really like her, but it's only been a few days. We really hit it off, but I don't know when it's the right time to ask her out. Oh, a classic question. So I am not anyone who believes in any kind of bullshit about like wait 3 days to text somebody or wait a week before you ask them out. I don't know. Earnestness is in short supply these days. And I think displaying that with somebody is a great thing to do. However, I'm not saying you need to ask them out to a dinner date because you want them to be your partner. I would start this from if there is really a vibe, if you're really vibing, if there is something there on both ends that you're both picking up on, if you casually ask them, you know, hey, I think we've really hit it off. How would you feel about meeting up to get coffee? Very simple, not even a full-on date. Just, hey, or you could even say, like, I really enjoyed chatting with you. How would you feel about meeting up and talking more? Really simple, no pressure, not a dinner date, not a big to-do, not even like kinky play, anything like that. Just let's talk more, let's meet up more. And if they're also into you, they're going to be like, yeah, let's get coffee. Or, you know, even if they can't make it that time, they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry I can't make it this week, but like next week I would love to. They're going to show some level of enthusiasm. They're going to want to talk to you more. And then you're going to get additional FaceTime to really check, is this somebody that you might want to go on a date with? And then if that goes well, that initial meetup goes well, then you can say after the date, or maybe even during if you're really hitting it off. I've had it go both ways. Like I've had people where by the end of the date, they're like, I'd love to see you again. Can we make plans? Or sometimes it's like later that night or like the next day. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. I wouldn't read into it if they don't schedule a date immediately, either before the end of that date. Just communicate your interest and be like, I had a really fun time tonight, or I love getting to hang out with you, or, thanks for spending time with me. Like some kind of thing that indicates follow-up interest. Even if it's not literally, let's make plans, I can't wait to see you again. Fine. Great, perfect, love it. So then hopefully by that coffee meetup, then you can get into the like, I had a great time getting coffee with you. How would you feel about getting dinner? Simple, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, no big deal. Should work out, I think, pretty well in most cases, TBH. So helpful, actually. I've always used red, green, and yellow. And my new partner asked if we could use DEFCON levels because that's what she's really using. I've never heard of anyone using DEFCON levels, but honestly, I kind of love it. Might be confusing in a public play space, but yeah, I think that's going to be... You're going to need to check in regularly and be like, what's the DEFCON? Is it the DEFCON? What's your DEFCON at? I guess I don't know how you'd phrase that. You know, what's your DEFCON at? Yeah, just having that check-in, you can calibrate, and then hopefully they can tell you what level they're at. Agree about earnesty, though I'm autistic, so I kind of just hate such don't understand dumb dating rules. I mean, there's a reason I only date neurodivergent people, to be honest with you. There's a reason. Listen, in all of my videos where I talk about dating, what do I tell you all? I think being direct about what you want is a good thing. Everyone that I have had healthy long-term relationships with likes the fact that I am earnest and direct and blunt and say what I want and ask for things that I want. Because that's how you make a good adult relationship work. Playing around, in the shadows, beating around the bush, following little dumb dating rules, I don't think really helps anything. We live in a time where everyone is monitoring each other and is like, oh, everything's cringe, everything's stupid. No, be earnest, be direct, be honest about your feelings. Most people are going to be really flattered by that because a lot of people don't do that because they're scared. So what you're demonstrating, you are demonstrating your value. Don't do that. Don't do the dentist system. That's a joke. You are demonstrating that you're not afraid to say what you want and you're not afraid to ask for what you want. Because the alternative to doing that is like, playing around and being like, I don't know if it's like the right time to like ask them out yet. Like, okay, if their uncle just died, if they just got fired at work, if they're really busy with school and like about to graduate next week, okay, don't ask them then, all right? But if it's otherwise normal operating procedures for them, just be like, hey, how about we get some coffee sometime? Here's my number, so call me maybe. Exactly, yeah, it's easy. No, don't worry about it. It's easy and simple. And, you know, hopefully it'll work out. And if it doesn't, no big deal, because it was just coffee. And then maybe you get there, maybe you're like, ooh, this person is not who I remember. Or maybe it's like, oh, this person is really great, I can't wait to see him again. And I've had coffee days that last for like 2+ hours. I've had dinners that last for like 4 hours, you know? Like, the first dates I've had with a lot of people, like, you can always follow it up. Like, I know some people recommend like having a short date first, but I also feel like that's like a dumb rule thing. Follow what your heart says, you know, unless you, okay, as a parenthetical to that, if you are somebody that has a tendency to get obsessive in relationships, I would give yourself a rule of like not having the first date be like longer than 4 hours. If you know that you get really obsessive and clingy. But if you, generally speaking, at least in the current iteration of your life, have a healthier way of approaching relationships, if you know that you don't get obsessive and you can keep your head on straight, who's to say the coffee date can't turn into a dinner? Who's to say the dinner can't turn into drinks? You know, I've had first dates with people that I am still with right now, where our first date was we got dinner, we talked for so long that we were there until the restaurant closed. We tipped them very well, okay? And then we went to a place across the street and had a nightcap and had after dinner drinks, and we were out for like, I don't know, fucking 5 hours probably. And that's great. And that was an indication that we were really compatible in the afternoon went well. But also, like, you can do a little time-limited things that's also fine. Like, go for coffee, and then maybe if you really like coffee, go for a walk at the park across the street. Or, you know, you can, you know, oh, there's like a fun arcade next door. Like, you can turn that into more if you want more, or just have it be coffee. And that's also cool. But yeah. As a server, I'll be honest, for dinner hurts my soul. I know. We didn't realize it was that long. In our defense, we were not looking at the time when we realized it had been that long. It was not intentional for it to be 4 hours. But like we went there pretty late as it was already because of schedule stuff. So there were only like 1 or 2 more tables that came in after us, and like it wasn't a huge thing. So, but yeah, we tipped well, at least at the very end, because I know server life, I get it, but I apologize. It was not intentional for it to be that long. And then, yeah. Anyways, that's that on that. I think that's going to be it for tonight's stream, y'all. I've given you a couple extra minutes of my time, but I'm going to go feed the bandita and give her a little walkie opportunity before it gets completely dark outside. As always, thank you so much for joining me. You can go ahead and subscribe if you want to be here for the next one, because we stream every Friday at 6 o'clock Pacific time. Except for, as a reminder, I will not be streaming next Friday because I'm going to a birthday thing and I will not be in town. But that's it. So next Friday we will not have a stream, as an FYI, but we normally do this every Friday at 6 p.m. So go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more from that. Thank you all so much for your questions. Stay safe, have fun, drink your water, wear your sunscreen. I'll talk to you again very soon. Bye. Yeah, I knew that was going to wake up the bandita. I knew I was going to wake up the puppy. Hi, girl. Hi, girl. Come here. Come here, my darling. You're right in front. Yeah, you're right there. Hi, come here. Get closer. Get closer. Come here, baby. Oh, I know, little belly rubs. Huh, come here. But the people, they demand your presence. They demand your presence. Oh, look at you. Look at you, little baby girl. Hello. Oh. Uh-oh. Whoop, there we go. Yeah? How was your nap, honey? Was it a good nap? You say, I would like dinner, please. Please to me give dinner. Please to me give dinner. Oh, my sweet angel girl. Alrighty, y'all. Stay safe. Bandita says bye. Bye.